I'm down to dunk.
And I'm down to dunk.
I'm down to dunk.
This is J-Dub, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Shai Alexander, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lindy Waters, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Jay Will, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Kenneth Williams, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to dunk.
We say this is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
Cracklin Oat Bran?
Have you had Cracklin Oat Bran?
No,
No. Okay.
but it's healthy.
You a big oat brand guy?
I'm a big Oat Bran guy.
Okay.
I think I would switch it with Fruity Pebbles.
Okay, eat faster. Don't put as much in the bowl.
Do you have a gallon of milk I can also take home?
You don't have milk at home?
One cinnamon toast.
Okay.
Yeah. Cereal is great. Yeah.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays, my good friend Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew? I'm still sick. My whole family is sick. Everyone is sick.
Welcome to the world of having children in your home. Just
brutal.
illness. It's terrible. We've been going through it too here. I feel like we're finally well today, which means we'll be catching whatever's next, right around the corner. You know what else is catching everything right around the corner? Is the Thunder catching a loss to the Detroit Pistons.
Two in a row.
That was pretty bad. That game was particularly bad just because they were pretty dominant in the first half. I think they were up 15 going into the second half. And then the Pistons scored 36 points in the third quarter to the Thunder's 22, and then 28 to the Thunder's 18 in the fourth. It was a tale of two halves, as they say.
It was a little bit of a gut punch. As much as a game could be a gut punch at this stage in this team's development, just because like I saw people freaking out after the first Bucks game, and I was like, who cares? Like the Bucks are the best team in the league, even though they don't have Giannis. Like they are so well drilled defensively.
Yeah,
and I'm not surprised that we look a mess with our typically terrible offense.
Yeah,
going into the Detroit game though, I was like, okay. All of my predictions about OKC being a tier above Detroit, it's all going to come to fruition, and then it did, Andrew. And at halftime, I was feeling like $1 million.
I know, me
like
too.
This team is so much further along the path, Andrew.
Especially that fast break where like Shai dishes to Giddey and Giddey finishes that layup. You're just like, all right, everything's clicking.
And the other thing was like, yes, they were hitting their threes, but it wasn't like they shot 50% from three. They shot 37.5% in that first half, which was like a proof of concept for the idea that we've been talking about. Like if this team could just hit a normal amount of threes, they're going to blow some teams out because the defense is so good. Like if they can just shoot 35% from three, which they would still be blowing them out if they had shot that, like this team is going to look really good. And the defense was like incredible, causing turnovers. It felt like on almost every other play, getting out in transition. So yeah, you were feeling amazing at half. You're thinking, okay, this team is ready to go. And then right at the start of the third quarter, it flipped in like the exact same way. Like all of a sudden, OKC was the one turning it over. Detroit started hitting all their threes and they just caught up. And then for me, it was like that. It was sometime in the fourth where I actually started getting like disappointed, with whoever was out on the court at that time, because up until then it was like, okay, they came back, they made a run, and then it was really nice and back and forth, and it was really competitive. But then in that fourth quarter, you just kind of felt like them lose the grip of the game, which was a little disappointing, because they had their vets in there. I mean, like Kenrich and Muscala played a lot of minutes. In that game. So
the fourth quarter minutes, it was Shai 9 minutes. J-Dub played all 12 minutes of the fourth. Kenrich played 9. Usman played 10.
Yes, he did.
Muscala played 7:46.
Yeah, so I will say that I rewatched the game last night. Didn't come away as feeling as bad.
Oh, that's good.
So on second watch, it was just like, oh, this is just a typical like bad game from a young team. Like
Yeah.
it didn't feel as bad as it did in the moment. Watching it back, and like I'm sure you were on Twitter. There's a segment of Thunder fandom that is getting excited about whoever it is. Maybe it's Giddey, maybe it's Dort.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this is a terrible contract, or like we need to start thinking about trading Giddey. And in the moment, I kind of like understood why, even though I wouldn't agree with that, I understood why they were going to that extreme. But on the rewatch, I was like, you know what? Like Giddey's just having trouble finishing right now. Like he's doing some other stuff offensively that I think is fine. Like he has not been good. I'm not trying to claim he's been good, but it's really just the finishing. Like he is really having trouble, and in that game in particular, trouble dealing with like the size, length, and athleticism of Detroit. Like whether it was trying to get past Sadiq Bey, who is huge, or trying to shoot over Jalen Duren, or like trying to deal with Hami, who was like super active and caused at least one turnover on Giddey.
Yeah.
Like he just seemed to have a lot of trouble with Detroit. And they're sort of unique. I mean, it was kind of like a repeat of the Bucks game, and that there's just like a ton of size for a team that just doesn't have a lot of size right now.
Yeah. Detroit's not like huge though.
They aren't. They're not huge, but
they're not the Bucks. They don't play a guy above 6'8". I mean, besides Duren.
Yeah, but like Duren is like super bouncy and athletic, and he was like altering a lot of shots around the rim.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just felt like Sadiq is a big dude for a wing player. Yes, very barrel chested. And then Hami, I mean, we know about Hami. So yeah, maybe height. It's not that they're big. It's just that they're much more athletic. They're a much more athletic team than the Thunder.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where Giddey struggled.
How'd you feel about Shai down the stretch of the game?
I mean, honestly, I didn't even want to listen to this argument last year, but I'm more open to the argument that like, not that they're wasting Shai, but like he is so clearly far and away the best player on this roster.
Mm-hmm.
The drop off after Shai to whoever you think is the second best player on this team is so large. And
part of his rise this season has been
it is, and that's why I said like it's this season as opposed to last season where I'm starting to like entertain that idea a little bit more, just because like yeah, you can blame him for like not taking over, but at the same time, like he was making great plays.
Mm-hmm.
He was generating wide open threes. He was making the right basketball play. So I'm not going to get mad at Shai just because none of his teammates can hit a three ever, forever and ever and ever. Like that's not his fault. He's generating those looks. I mean, at the beginning of the third quarter, I went back and rewatched that, and Jerry got 3 wide open threes in that first like 5-6 minutes and bricked all of them. And he's the best shooter on the team. He's shooting 40% from 3 right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best, and he bricked all 3 of those wide open threes.
Yeah.
And it's like, who am I supposed to blame there? Like, I'm not blaming Shai because he didn't like go alpha mode. Like how much can we really expect him to do that night after night?
Yeah, I just thought he could do it against Detroit. Their defense didn't have any answers for him all night. Even they played zone on him. He was like, I don't care. Like there was a play in the first half where he, like Sadiq Bey and Cade Cunningham were standing right next to each other, and he just goes right past both of them. I just thought he could get a little bit. I mean, he took 5 shots in the whole fourth quarter. It's like, I don't know. Like he could have taken more.
But to be honest, like when we think about the version of the Thunder team, it's not heliocentric Luka ball. Like I think it's probably better for Shai to play this other way where he's trying to generate open shots for teammates, because that's the ideal version of this team. The roster doesn't allow for it right now, but I think it actually makes more sense. I mean, yes, you would like him to take over at some point. And I feel like there's similar complaints about Cade Cunningham, like that sometimes he can be a little too passive, kind of does like the Chris Paul thing where he just kind of hangs back for a couple quarters and then asserts himself when he needs to.
Yeah.
So
Cade only took 12 shots in that game.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's the second half. Sorry. No. What did he take? Sorry. 17. No,
17.
21.
Oh, he keeps getting higher. How many did he take?
I keep clicking. I'm on Basketball Reference, clicking on the quarters and halves, and I actually clicked half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. The complaint is not to Shai. Shai was incredible in this game. 33 points, 7 boards, 5 assists, a steal, 4 blocks, only 1 turnover. He was outrageous.
He was outrageous. No,
Guys,
the complaint is that they don't have one shooter on this team.
well, they've got guys. They just didn't play them. Like Isaiah Joe has proven that he can shoot it. Wiggins has proved that he can shoot it.
But even Wiggins is like I think he's at 33% for this year. Like their one knockdown shooter is Mike Muscala, who has been cold to start the season.
Yeah.
For him. But like even someone, I mean, like after that, it's like I'm going to Trey Mann, who even last year shot like 36%. I think he's at 33% this year.
Yeah.
Just the lack of shooting, it's like wearing those weights, those like ankle weights when you're like trying to, run faster or whatever people use them for. I don't actually know.
Mm-hmm.
And the lack of shooting on this team is just putting like a huge weight on this roster. And the promise is that like, oh, well, yeah, obviously there's eventually going to be shooting on this team, but it's like, well, it has to come from someone on this team, likely. Like,
well, they're not trading for a shooter. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
Right. And even if they draft a shooter next year, okay, well, that's one more. Okay, we'll bring in Chet. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. Yeah. But like somebody has to start shooting.
Well, and also like we have to understand something else about bringing in a guy like Chip England. I'm getting like tweets from people after the game like, what do we even bring that guy in for? Like that guy sucks too. Like if you're actually going to try and change these guys' shots, you are going to take a step back because you're changing what they've been doing their entire career and the way that they have gotten to the NBA. You're going to start tweaking little things here and there that could make things worse before they get better. So I just don't be that guy that's in the comments talking about how the shooting coach is not a good shooting coach. It's been 9 games,
That would, I haven't even like thought about Chip England, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. Well, it's been 10 games. So like, what do we don't make sweeping evaluations on like really young players over a 10-game stretch. If this was a random 10-game stretch in February, I don't think that people would be as upset as they are now. Also, remember how you felt after they beat the Clippers twice at home. I mean, that happened within this 10-game stretch too. It's just these last 2 games have been rough. And this is kind of what you sign up for whenever you roster the youngest team in the league, is that you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have players that look great one night and terrible the next. Like this is the story of most young players. And honestly, the guy that you would expect to not have these crazy ups and downs is in a boot,
in a boot.
So I just don't think, I don't know, the whole like freaking out about, oh my gosh, this is going to be a journey of ups and downs this season with this Thunder team. And the story so far is that Shai is like an absolute star.
Well, and I think that's where the frustration comes from. One, that Shai is like, yes, absolutely a star.
Yeah.
Far beyond what he was even last year.
Oh, yeah.
During that awesome stretch.
He's a lot better than last year.
But it's also, I think what people get frustrated with the shooting is like, they haven't necessarily brought in a ton of just like bona fide shooters, like guys who you are just kind of waiting for it to come around because it's there. Like a lot of these guys have to develop their shot.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where part of the frustration comes as well. Like if we had someone, like someone who had the reputation of like a MPJ, I'm not saying like that level of player, but just someone who had that reputation as a shooter. If they were shooting like 34%, 33%, you wouldn't really worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's these guys, it's just like, it's hard to just sit here and envision like, oh, they're obviously going to become a shooter. We don't know. We have no idea. We have nothing to base that on other than Chip England being a good coach, being a good shooting coach. Like that's the only thing I like am hanging my hat on, because I don't know how else I'm supposed to project that Dort's suddenly going to start shooting threes at some point in his career.
Yeah, the only guys that I'm like looking at their percentages and I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna get better. I think Jang, I don't know if it'll be better this year, but I can see him being a good shooter. He's shooting 22% from 3. Trey Mann, 29%. I mean, that's going to get better.
Oh wow, 9%. Okay.
Yeah, it's really bad. Shai, even 30% from three, which he's just not taking any. So it's like almost that percentage doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Those to me, those are gonna get better. I think that we could have a JRE regression at some point. Bazley's not going to shoot this well, but those are like the only two guys that are above 38% right now.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's about Shea though is like you start looking at his career, and it's like, was that 1 year the outlier? Was the 40% year the outlier? And he's just kind of settling back into what he really is as a shooter. Because we keep waiting for that Shea to come back. And there's been so much other good stuff that you can kind of ignore it and be like, well, who really cares?
He's a career 34%. I think that is closer to what we should expect, because he shot 36% his first year with the Clippers, 34.7% with the Thunder, his second year, then up to 41, then down to 30. To me, like, we have a larger sample of him being just like a pretty good shooter from three than we do of him being like really bad. And last year, the shot attempts were kind of wild, especially at this juncture in the season, where he's taking these like wild step backs and just like all these wild kinds of threes that honestly, you haven't seen him take those at all this year.
Yeah. In fact, that's a great lead in, Andrew.
Ooh.
To a short little segment. I don't have a name for it, but I just looked up one good stat and one bad stat about the players who have played the most on the team. So I'm not going to do it for every player on the roster, because some of these guys are like, they barely played 100 minutes. Oh, hold on. You might as well just say it out loud.
I thought maybe we could be a little bit more.
I am on my mic.
Okay. All right. Never mind.
Yeah.
I thought I was
Okay.
hearing a little bit more noise. All right. Keep going.
Okay. So, a good stat and a bad stat. Now, typically you would want to do a compliment sandwich, Andrew.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I only have one of each. So this is an open face sandwich. One compliment, one bad thing. Let's start with Shai. This is really interesting. The percentage of his threes. Now, this is the good stat. I guess I should ask you, would you like to talk about the good or the bad first, Andrew? For
the bad first. I always want the bad first.
All right. The bad, as you just mentioned, not taking a lot of threes. He's only taking 11% of his shots from three, which is a career low, lower than even his rookie season. Now, he's been so good elsewhere, it's kind of hard to find a bad stat. But going forward, I mean, his shot distribution is like DeMar DeRozan right now, which one freaks out Taylor. Taylor is not a DeMar DeRozan fan. But also, like, for a team that needs shooting so desperately, we had already kind of banked in like Shai being a decent three-point shooter, and he's not even taking them. So it just hurts like the overall thing that we've got going on right now when he only takes 11% of his shots from three. So that's the one bad thing, you might say. Okay, good though. The threes that he is taking, 57% of them are assisted.
Yeah.
Now compare that to last year, 30%. Compare that to the year before, 30%. So at least the threes he is taking, as you mentioned, aren't those like wild, I'm going to do everything by myself and shoot this crazy step back three. He's actually taking the majority of his threes are assisted. So I think that's pretty good.
That is good. It's just not very many.
It's just not very many.
I think, it would obviously help the offense a lot if you could find him on the wing.
Yeah.
Because there does seem to be some kind of standing around a little bit at times.
There does.
It's not the one operating.
Actually, bonus good stat for Shai. So this is a compliment sandwich. He is 10th in the league in deflections per game. 3.7 per game, 2.7 last season. Now you might say, oh, defensive stats, who cares? Let me read you the list, the top 10 lists for deflections per game. Paul George, OG Anunoby, Alex Caruso, DeAnthony Melton, DeJounte Murray, Anthony Davis, Jalen Suggs, and Luka. So Luka's the one that kind of stands out as like, okay, well, he's not an amazing defender. All those other guys thought of as like very good defenders. And this is just one stat to show, the change defensively from Shai. So I thought I'd include that. Okay, so that was Shai. Who would you like to hear next, Andrew?
Give me Dort.
Okay.
The bad news on Dort.
Well, the bad news is Dort is shooting 19.3% from three.
Yeah, that's bad.
Furthermore, as a percentage of his overall shot attempts, corner threes still only account for 8% of his shots, the exact same as the last 2 seasons. So so even though he is taking fewer threes per game, they're not necessarily funneling towards the corners. Good news, Andrew, though.
Mm-hmm.
His 3-point attempt rate is at a career low. Fewer of Dort's shots are coming from 3 than ever before. So as bad as it's been, his shot chart is actually starting to look a little better.
Yep.
Dort's attempts from 0 to 3 feet have increased from 20% to 33% of his overall shot diet. So more shots at the rim, less shots from 3. If you compare his seasons, his shot distribution right now looks much closer to his rookie season than the last 2 seasons. So as bad as it's been, and it has been bad, 19.3% from 3, it does feel like he is starting to change his shot distribution. Now it's only 10 games.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. But you know what? That made me feel pretty good.
Yeah. And for all my Dort haters out there, the Thunder are plus 7.3 when he's on the court.
Yes, because most of these stats are going to be offensive stats. Okay, who do you want to hear next? Give
me Poku. You got a Poku stat?
Nope. Yes, actually I do. Poku. Bad. He is back under 40% from the field, Andrew. 27% from 3, 46% on 2s. Okay, that's bad. Now listen to this. Again, this is very similar to Dort. Last year, Poku only took 28% of his shots at the rim, 31% of his shots from mid-range. This year, 42% of his shots at the rim, 19% of his shots from mid-range. I like that. That suggests, that could suggest a few things. One, he might be getting out in transition more, getting like easy looks at the basket. Or he could start to be more physical, which is something we've talked about before. Now, he's also had some like truly awful attempts around the rim this season. So I kind of understand why he was backing out to the mid-range last year in some respects. But in general, that's what you would like to see. You would like to see Poku getting attempts closer to the rim and him not taking 31% of his shots from the mid-range.
Yeah, that's not ideal. He is questionable right now with the right shoulder bursitis. I'll bet you he'll be back either in the next couple games. Also, just a quick injury report. Jang and Eugene and Lindy and J-Dub are all playing in the blue game today. I don't know if they'll be recalled or not. They'll probably get recalled and then may or may not play tonight.
Okay.
And then Giannis and Pat Connaughton, obviously, and then Drew Holiday and Middleton and Ingles are all out tonight for the Bucks in OKC. So if you bought your tickets and we're excited about that, well, get ready for some Lopez ball.
Hey, and speaking of, the game's about to end. OKC is killing the Santa Cruz Warriors.
Nice.
And Usman Jang, 20 points, 6 of 13 from the field, 2 of 8 from 3, 25 and 4.
Whoa.
With 2 blocks and a steal.
Whoa.
Eugene, he's not the league scorer, though, because that would be Eugene, 27 points.
Oh, Eugene.
Listen to this line from J. Will. 7 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 4 steals.
Ooh.
And again, this is the G League. Okay.
And again, this doesn't matter.
Okay, next. There's 4 more, Andrew. Bays, Treyman, Giddey, or Jerry. Who would you like?
Give me Bays.
Okay, Bays. Now, the bad for Bays is that he's shooting 43% at the rim, according to Cleaning the Glass, which is in the 0th percentile. The 0th. The 0th. That's as bad as it gets. 43%, which is honestly unbelievable because if you had asked me, I would have said, you know what, he's actually finishing around the rim pretty well. He's had some nice, like, you know, his typical, when he looks good, it's usually him like cutting in, he catches the pass, he dunks it. He's had a lot of those, but apparently not enough.
Yeah, it doesn't quite match the eye test there for me either.
But check this out. As you mentioned, Bays is shooting 39% from 3 on only 1.8 attempts per game. More importantly, the number of threes he's taken in the first 10 games. Last year, 44 threes in his first 10 games.
That's a lot.
This year, 18.
That's great.
That's a significant change in how he is playing basketball.
This is boxed in Bays.
Boxed in Bays, and it's like this version of Bays, even when because like there's still moments. There was a moment, I think, in that third quarter where he took this like fadeaway mid-range shot from the baseline
Yeah.
and then followed it up.
It was like 3 possessions. It felt like where it was just like, can we like hit the eject button for Bays? Like, can we just get him out of here?
So that stuff is still happening, but it doesn't bother me as much because I feel like he is correcting the other parts of his game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I feel I'm more hopeful because it's like, well, if he can improve on his 3-point shooting, both in accuracy, but also just not taking as many, then maybe we're going to see some further development. And so I'm feeling a little bit more hopeful.
Yeah,
okay.
He's been legitimately fine this year, plus 11.2 when he's on the court for the Thunder.
Yeah. Okay, let's do Trey Mann.
Trey Mann.
Now the bad, and I'll be honest with you. No, this is just like statistics. Like there's things you could probably say that are bad about Trey. Statistically, I feel like Trey is having a really good season.
Sell me.
Bad, he's shooting, as you mentioned, 29% from 3.
Bad.
Not good at all. His finishing, he is shooting 68.4% in the restricted area on 1.9 attempts per game.
That's good.
Last year, he shot 47.8% in the restricted area on 1.5 attempts per game. Mm-hmm. So he's getting to the rim more, and he's shooting a much better percentage, and it looks different. Now, I don't know. I feel like at the beginning of the season, we were super hyped on Trey, and then it's kind of been like up and down since then. But I still feel like he's there. Like it's coming, and it's looking good overall. I was actually surprised that he's averaging like 24 minutes per game because it feels less than that.
Yeah, it does. He needs to be more aggressive. There are too many possessions on offense where he's out there and he's really should be the guy initiating offense, and he's just moving the ball along. And it's like, what are you doing, bro? Like, that's just happened too much.
You got to empower him.
Got to be empowered.
The other thing is his passing. Did you know that he's almost doubled his assists per game while decreasing his turnovers?
That's good. Yeah, his passing has actually been pretty decent this year. He's a good player. He's going to get better. He's going to have some good stretches.
And I would say those two things were things that we were really focused on last year. Like, oh my gosh, this guy cannot finish at the rim because he's just not strong enough. And also, like, he looks like a good passer, but it was not showing up in the stats. Like his assist to turnover ratio was very close to 1. Yeah. And now it's kind of showing up. It's starting to show up. Yeah, the other thing, one more, plus 15.4 when he is on the court. That's in the 87th percentile.
Yep.
The Thunder are playing better when Trey Mann is in the game. Okay.
Also, braids are back. Also, the braids are back.
Good. I like the braids. I think it's a good look.
Yeah.
Plus, it signals like this is new Trey Mann. This is Trey Mann 2.0.
No, it felt like he brought the old Trey Mann back for a couple of games, and I was like,
I had already moved past. Okay, Jerry.
Jerry.
His steal percentage, Andrew, percentage of plays that end with Jerry getting a steal. He's in the 99th percentile for a big right now. And why that's relevant is because he's been really good in transition. 1.6 points per possession in transition, just outside the top 10 for the league. And that's not that insane because he was really good in transition last year. And it makes sense because it feels like there's so many fast breaks where the beneficiary at the end of the day is Jerry catching some crazy pass from Giddey or from Shai, and he's able to finish it. So I like that. The bad is that he's probably playing out of position. Lineups with Jerry at center have not been good. They were not good last year. They are not good this year. OKC has a minus 17.4 net rating when he is at center.
Yeah.
And like I said, that was the case last year. In general, his minutes at power forward have been much better. Yeah. But like last year, it was 75-25 in terms of his split between center and power forward. This year, it's 90-10 for obvious reasons.
They've also been so bad in the first quarters. They're one of the worst first quarter teams in the NBA.
Yes.
And that's been a huge part of it. That's why, like, when you look at the plus minus differential on cleaning the glass, like Jeremiah is terrible, Giddey's terrible, Poku's terrible. A lot of that's just because those guys have started.
Okay, final one. Josh Giddey. Now the bad, Again, this one's an obvious one. He's shooting 47% in the restricted area.
Yeah.
I felt like that Pistons game was a great example of his lack of finishing right now.
He's taking such difficult shots. He's taking these like 3 foot out, like push shots that are really tough because like he's not using the glass at all. Like you have to be just highly accurate on those. And they're just they're difficult shots.
And he also is making his layups more difficult. He had a layup where he could have gone up with the left hand. He had like a guy on his right-hand side, but instead he did like a 180 and tried to do like a reverse right-handed layup.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, come on, man.
Yeah.
But check this out, Andrew. Shooting 38.9% on catch and shoot threes. You mentioned this to Michele on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Shooting 33% from three, 60% from the corners. Obviously, this is, not a ton of attempts, but you couldn't ask for much more from Josh Giddey this early in the season from three.
He's almost like the anti-Trey.
He is, where you don't expect him to be doing well at all. And then you check the stats and you're like, oh, you know what? He's actually been pretty decent from three.
Too bad. I mean, count me in as like somebody who's not worried about Josh Giddey. I mean, remember he had like a pretty bad ankle sprain.
Yeah.
He has not looked like he's in rhythm this season for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not concerned about it. And maybe that's just me being blindly optimistic, but we have a larger sample of Josh being a really good player.
Well, here's the final stat. And this is what I thought was the most encouraging stat that I found. And it is paint touches.
Mm-hmm.
Giddey is averaging 72.7 paint touches per game. Wow. 72 in 28 minutes per game. As a comparison, Shai is averaging around 78, but he's playing almost 36 minutes a game.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, like, as rough as it sometimes looks for Giddey to like get to the rim, he is getting to the paint. Mm-hmm. And that's super important when it comes to kicking out to shooters or to do something himself at the rim. And so that's what gives me hope. Like, he's not this guy who's like getting stonewalled at the 3-point line. Like, he is finding himself getting to the paint where good things start to happen. The problem is, of course, as we mentioned, he's kicking out to shooters who aren't making shots, or for himself, he's just not being able to convert once he gets into the paint. But I do think that is encouraging. Like, he's getting to the paint more per minute than Shai right now.
Yeah. The Thunder are asking a lot of these guys during this stretch and really during this season. They're going to ask a lot of them to grow and stretch, and not just, hey, come on back and be the player you were last year. I mean, this goes for Dort and Trey and Shai and everybody. And so there will be times where it looks like, and I got so many. I just tried to stay away from Twitter, and then when I rejoined it, it was like, oh my gosh, I was like reading my mentions. It was just like, no one has improved. This has been such a terrible season. It's like, guys, this is what you get when you watch a young team. Like, this is just a part of it. They have to have growing pains, and part of that growth a lot of times is not being very good. And will every player on this team end up being a good NBA player? No. Will some guys that we think the world of today be out of the league in 5 years? Yes. But the guys that are going to be a part of this Thunder team that's going to make the journey back up the second mountain they're going to have ups and downs, and eventually they're going to get better. I mean, think about like Westbrook in years 1 and 2. And like the up and down thoughts that we had about him. I mean, there was a point in his rookie season where I was like, man, the Thunder should have taken DJ Augustine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just can't. And Russell is a Hall of Famer, one of the best players to ever play the game, the best Thunder player of all time. And still, it took time with him. So I know we live in this culture where it's just like all the time, like I want it and I want it now, and I need to have this now, and things need to be better now. I mean, it's not going to be that way with this team. It's going to take time. This is he's 19 still. So like, we've got to not jump to these just giant conclusions. Like, oh man, we should probably trade Giddey because things haven't worked the first 10 games. It's just, man, we've got it. You have to take it easy with this and not make such sweeping remarks, either good or bad, with these guys, just because we just largely don't know yet.
Yeah. And, big picture, like, what did we talk about in preseason? How tough the schedule was going to be, and how that was likely going to lead to a ton of losses. Yeah. The fact that they are 4-6 ahead of the Golden State Warriors with a better point differential than the Golden State Warriors.
Right.
They're tied point differential with the Sacramento Kings, who are obviously wanting to make the playoffs. Like, on the whole, the season has been positive.
Yeah.
You can't take a step forward every single game. And there's going to be games that are legitimately disappointing, like last night. If you follow Detroit Pistons fans, they've been feeling this way up until that game. Like, they've been wondering, like, what's wrong with this team? Why aren't we making significant changes? Like, you're starting, like, or you're not starting, but you're playing 2 rookies heavy minutes. Like, what did you really expect to happen? And it's the same thing with Thunder fans. It's like, we're playing so many young guys and rookies. What did you really expect? Not consistency. You couldn't have expected consistency.
Yeah.
And we kind of got spoiled in that first, 6 to 8 games where it really did look like, wow, everything's kind of clicking right now.
Yeah.
And it was inevitable that they were going to hit like a rough patch, and they'll probably lose to the Bucks tonight, even though Giannis and Drew are out. Although, who knows? Maybe they won't, but.
Yeah. Well, and like we're seeing it play out with Golden State right now, where they're trying to do the old team, young team thing, and it's just not working.
And they actually have to win.
And they're playing young guys. They're basically playing 3 second-year players because James Wiseman didn't play at all last year. And they're seeing like, oh, crap, we can't win with these guys.
Yeah.
And we can't win with these guys right now. So that's the NBA. It is so rare that you pick up a young player that immediately helps you. It just takes time. That's the thing that kind of sucks with this is like, we're going to see progress and we're going to see regression and then progress again. It's just going to be all over the place just because they're young. Like, that's just the way.
Well,
that's just the way that it works.
And like, I'm sure people can look at, I think what people do is they look at like Paulo, and it's like, oh man, if we could have Paulo on this team, or if we had taken Franz Wagner, like, dude, the Magic are 2-9. Like, they just lost to the Rockets. They're terrible too.
Yeah.
Like, all of these teams with all these young guys that we like are terrible right now.
They stink too.
And
Detroit stinks. Orlando stinks. Houston stinks. They're
like,
all
these teams are going through this right now.
Yeah.
And it's a totally normal part of the process. And it's not fun in the moment because you want to feel validation. Like, oh, we made the right pick. We definitely have our core. This is all going to work out. But it just doesn't. It's not going to work like that.
Yeah. All right. Short pod today. Enjoy the Bucks game. Enjoy Toronto Raptors are in town on Friday. That should be fun. The Pascal Siakam-less Raptors. So that should be an interesting one. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll talk to you guys again on Friday.